Hi, and thank you for taking the time to join me on this video about the Clara James Tutoring franchise opportunity. I'd like to start by telling you how it all started and where we began. Hi, I'm Dawn. I started Clara James Tutoring back in 2012. At the time, I'll try and keep this brief because I know I can waffle, but then there's a part of me as well that thinks if you're going to become a part of something, you want to know what it is you're becoming a part of and how it got there. And by the end of this video, you're either going to think, yeah, I can relate to this, or you're going to think, no, this isn't for me. And that's fair enough, not for everyone. And not everyone's for us. A bit of background about me, and that will help fill in the gaps as to where Clara James Tutoring is today and how we got there. I was brought up youngest of two children. My mum and dad were amazing. I'm very, very lucky, and I thank them always for that. My dad was my role model. He'd built up a successful accountancy business, and my brother was someone that I also competed with. I tried to compete with my brother to prove to myself that I was as clever as he was. But when I was 16, Jace had already left for uni, and my dad had a major heart attack at work and died. And my two main role models at that stage had left my life. And my mum is amazing, but she's very much of the generation that women belong at home looking after their husbands. And so 19, I got married, and by just before my 21st birthday, Clara was born. 18 months later, Jamie was born. Then 2 years later, Angel was born. During the time just before Angel was born, we'd moved up to Yorkshire, and we came back down here to Buckinghamshire on holiday, and we stayed with friends. And when I looked at how other people my age had done since leaving school, I kind of thought, I would like a bit of that as well. I want to actually do something with my life. So when we went back up to Scarborough, I went into the playgroup where my oldest daughter went and asked if I could take on a role as a volunteer while I studied for the diploma in preschool practice. And thankfully, Mary changed my life that day, and she said yes. And within a couple of months, I was asked if I would take on the role of SENCO, which is the Special Educational Needs Coordinator, and also take on the responsibility for the policies and the planning within the setting. And within a couple of years, I'd finished my diploma, and I thought, actually, I want to do more. I've proved to myself I can do this much, and now I want to do more. So I took on a job at the local primary school, helping in a class where there were 4 children with ADHD. And I think my main role was to try and help the teacher maintain her sanity. And I left there after a year or two, and I worked in the base where it was basically a school for children with autism with a residential unit attached, and I worked in the unit. And at the same time, I also, my oldest daughter started juniors, and she was one of these children which, talking to her, she came across as being very eloquent, very clever. But when you looked at her written work, you'd think it being done by a lot younger child. She could spell the same word 2 or 3 different ways on the same piece of paper, and she would never recognize that there are any mistakes within there. And so there happened to be a course at the local college which I attended called Supporting Your Child with Reading and Spelling Difficulties. And we had to do a case study on the child that we were working with, and I used Clara as my case study. And at the end of the course, I spoke to the tutor, and she agreed that I probably needed to speak to the school about getting her tested for dyslexia. And I think at that time, dyslexia was still seen by most as an excuse rather than a natural disability to learning. And they instantly dismissed that idea. So I thought, well, if you're not going to help her, then I'll help her myself, because I didn't have the confidence at that stage to fight my corner. So I set about learning everything that I could about learning styles, dyslexia, and different learning types, so that I would be able to help her myself. And at the same time, because I was working with children with autism, I was doing my degree in childcare and education. I was working with young children. Everything I was learning implied that in order to learn, we need to be relaxed. And we all learn differently. There's not two people which are going to be identical. We're not clones of each other. And the other thing I learned while I was learning about dyslexia is the fact that you do something and you create a memory, you do it more than once and you're making that memory stronger, but your brain still only has one place to go to try and retrieve the information that it needs. And if you're dyslexic or if you're just stressed, it's unlikely that your brain is going to think logically, and it's more likely to go zooming around the place trying to find the information. So therefore, the more activities we do, the more likely it is that we're going to learn the information that we need. So I'll explain this more as we go through, but that's why I've never been a fan of just working with worksheets, because that's just creating one memory style, and we need more than that. And it's also why, so I'm getting sidetracked now, but I'll come back to that. When we moved back down here a few years later, I took a job as an MVQ assessor, and I would often find that I'd be 20, 30 miles away and I needed to get back to school for to collect my kids. And so I was often running late. So I stopped the MVQ assessing and became a childminder. But because of personal reasons in the divorce, I lost the house and I had to give up the childminding. So I took a job in a local optician's and I was bored. And within a couple of months, I decided that what I was going to do was apply for a job at the local college to go back to MVQ assessing, but be the person that was stationed in the college rather than being the person that went around the various settings. So I returned to college to do the Petals course, which would give me the qualification that I needed to do that. And while I was there, someone suggested that I had a go at tutoring, and as they say, the rest is history. That was 2012, just over 8 years ago as I film this now. And the business has gone from strength to strength. Originally, it was just me, and I just decided that tutoring would be something that I would do to subsidize my part-time job in the opticians. And then within 6 months, it had become a full-time job. Within 18 months, I was having to find people to work with me. At that time, I worked more as an agency rather than as an actual employer. And at that time, my son was doing his A-levels. And one of the tutors that I was recommending to others said that he could also support economics. And I asked him if he could spend a couple of hours with Jamie going over something that he'd missed in class. So he turned up with a pen and, right, what would you like to talk about? And Jamie guys, this was what it was. And he said, okay, so what do you know about it? And the entire hour was spent with this tutor just sat there going, well, you must know something, tell me everything you know about it. But the thing was, he didn't know anything because he'd missed that lesson. And in my mind as a parent, that wasn't value for money. And as a tutor, I suddenly realized that actually I've been recommending this person to loads of people, and if people think that I feel that that is good enough, this is going to ruin my reputation, because what I was doing was completely different to what he was doing, and I didn't want to be tied with the same bush as he was. So I decided that actually I couldn't trust people with my reputation. So I went back and I trimmed it right down. So again, there was only me and maybe one or two others. And I thought, okay, I can do this myself. I'll be far better. A year or two later, Jamie decided that he was going to take a gap year and go to Australia. And you suddenly realize actually your kids are growing up. So that was when I went back to taking the other tutors on. And this time I did it as an employer. And so I could say to them, look, this is how we do it. These are the systems we use. These are the resources we use. We either do it my way, or I don't want to be mean, but this isn't the job for you. And since then, the business has been fantastic. It's meant that I've got systems in place that I know that work. And I know I can recommend people with confidence because I know the people that I'm recommending are using the same systems and the same resources and doing the things the same way that I do. And that's probably been the last 3 or 4 years now. And business has grown and grown and grown. Then last year, 2019, I decided that I was going to franchise the business, because when you look at what a lot of tutors offer, they're doing things similar to the chap that I already mentioned. Or I had another tutor that supported my daughter when she was doing her GCSEs, not because she needed the knowledge as much, but more the fact that I didn't feel that she was actually doing a lot of studying herself. And like a lot of parents, I couldn't work with her, we clashed. And so I asked this other chap to help, and he would read to her from a textbook, and then she would have to answer the questions at the bottom of the page. And again, as a parent, you're kind of thinking, I could do that myself. I'm spending a lot of money for someone to read to my daughter. And you hear of other stories where tutors are using their phones in lessons, or parents are having to supply everything that's needed for the lesson, or there's just been so many things over the years that you think what we're offering is so different, such much better standards, much better value. And I feel that every parent deserves, every student, every child deserves that same high quality support. And so I felt that I couldn't create that nationally myself. I needed support to do that. And but talking to my mentor, the best support I could ever have was to find suitable franchisees to grow their own businesses within the UK using these standards, using these systems, because then that way I knew that these people were going to be equally passionate about what they were doing as I am about what I'm doing, because they would understand the fact that it's their reputation, it's their responsibility to provide this standard and ensure that this is what's been passed on. And so that's how we got to where we are today. Originally, we were Star Tutoring. Star was my maiden name, and if you do a Google search, you may still find things about us on the internet and referred to as Star Tutoring. But last year, when we tried to trademark the business name, Star was rejected because it was too much like a different company's name. So we changed the name to Clara James Tutoring. Clara is my oldest daughter, Jamie is my son, and then the logo is a picture of an angel, and Angel is my youngest daughter. So that's a bit of background on who we are and how we became who we are right now. And although we've grown from where we were originally and our names changed, to be honest, our goals haven't changed that much. We still believe that every person that gets in touch should be seen as someone that we can help rather than a statistic or a potential profit. Because I believe that if we genuinely offer support to people, they will in turn see that we are wanting to help. We will build a better relationship and they will want us to be the ones who tutor their children. Whereas if we see everyone as a means of as a statistic or creating a potential profit, there's never going to be that same compatibility, that same relationship as someone who is genuinely there to help. And it's been this attitude which has helped us grow relationships, which has helped us get to being finalists in national competitions, because we do genuinely care. It's not just something we say, it's not just something that we talk about in our marketing, it's something that we actually carry through. It's the little things that make the difference, and it's those little things that when you do them, very often aren't noticed, but when you don't do them, it makes a huge difference. And people do acknowledge the support that we give and the difference that we have made to people's lives. Okay, I'm not going to show you everything that we do because I can talk for England. I appreciate that. I'm a chatterbox, but I'm just going to take you through some of the different resources that we use to show you how we, like I said earlier, how we would use different resources to create different memories so that when the child is stressed or if they don't understand it from a certain direction, they're given the opportunity to learn it in a different way. And also, when we learn through seeing things, we might learn through hearing things, we might learn through getting involved with things. So again, through using different resources, we're putting more of these learning styles into use, and again we're more likely to meet the child's needs rather than just doing a one style suits all philosophy, which is used by so many different tutors around the country or even around the world. So okay, so this is how we do just some of the things, and I'll start with phonics. So for example, the image on the left, the green, is a young lad I go to. He was about 5 when I first started going to him. He's quite autistic and had very minimal communication skills. And so when I first started going, what we were talking about phonics, and what we did initially, going back a stage from what's actually here now, is the first week or few, we just had a piece of paper, and at the top of the paper it had perhaps an A, and then on that sheet of paper it had to have various things starting with A, and we would colour them in, and we'd talk about what we were colouring. So there might be an apple, and we'd talk about how we were colouring the apple red, or there might be an ant, and we'd talk about how we're colouring the ants black, or we'd talk about how ants move about and things like this. And so it was very, very basic. And then he enjoyed the kind of like creative, practical things. And so as we progressed through, what we then started doing was that we'd have two lists, one which was a picture, the other one which is the words, like you can see there. And he'd have to try, we'd cut them out, and then he'd have to match the picture to the corresponding word. And as we progressed, he would also sometimes we'd do it so that we had a picture that needed colouring. So again, we could talk about the different colours we were using and things, or what the shapes were, and then we'd match them to the corresponding word. And then we'd do it so that we had the pictures that needed colouring with the corresponding word, but the word was in a sentence, so then you had to fill in the missing word from the sentence. Another game we'd often do is we'd have a list of words, perhaps starting again with that blend or containing that blend, and we'd play hangman using them, where the aim of the game, you have to find the words, letters that go into the word and put them in the correct order, and you have to try and work out what the word is before you run out of lives. Or we might do, there's a picture there of an igloo and the word, we might have it as a pairs game, so you'd have all the cards laid on the table and you have to pick up two, a picture and a word, and if they're corresponding, i.e. the picture matches the word, you'd get to keep them and have another go. If they don't, then you'd put them back and the other person has a go, and it's the person who has the most pairs at the end is the winner. Sometimes we might do it as a fishing game, so we'd have all the words and the pictures attached to fish, and then the fish would have paper fish, and then the fish would have a paper clip through the eye, and you'd have a rod with a piece of string and a magnet on the end of the string, and you'd have to try and hook out two fish, and again, if they corresponded, same word and picture, then you'd keep that pair and have another go. If they didn't, you'd put them back down and the other person would have a go. But the thing is, with all that, we do numerous other things as well. There might be word searches, or there might be board games, snakes and ladders, all sorts of things. But the key thing out of all of them was to make it fun, because if you're enjoying yourself, you're more relaxed, and if you're relaxed, I do believe that you're in a better place to absorb the information that you'll need and to learn. And this is a game I love. It's Rich Rich. It's basically, we have a list of homophones and homographs, and you choose a word from the list, but you don't tell the other person what it is you've chosen, and you have to try and draw the picture. And it doesn't matter how good you are at drawing, because trust me, I'm terrible at drawing. But once you've drawn the picture, the other person has to guess what it is. They guess, and then you write the correct spelling next to that word, because by doing that, you're creating both a visual image and the written word. And also what we might do is put that word then into a sentence. And again, because you're talking about it, you're talking about the image, you're talking about the word, you're drawing the image, you're actually literally drawing it, and you've got the final visual image. You're again covering lots of the different learning styles and creating different memories to help the children learn. Okay, I'm going to use times tables as an example for maths, but most of these games, which I'm going to show you now, can be adapted so they could be used for different things as well. So for example, here I've got a picture of noughts and crosses. With this game, what we'd do is choose a times table we were practicing. So imagine we were practicing the 6 times table. If I wanted to claim that middle square where it says 12, before I could claim it, I'd have to work out what 12 times 6 is. And then once I've told you my answer of 72, I could then put my circle, my nought around it, or my scribble, or whatever else it is we're doing. And it's obviously the first person who either gets a diagonal, a row, or a column of 6 is the winner. But that could equally be adapted so that you had different types of questions in there. You may have an adding question in there, or you could take it up to kind of like a simultaneous equation in there, or it could be all sorts of things just adapted. So each of these ideas can be easily adapted to suit different levels of learning. So the same with the snakes and ladders, in each square as you move around the board there's a question, and as you land on the different questions you have to answer them. But once again, these questions can be moved, or these questions can be altered so that they're appropriate to the age and ability of the child that you're working with. Underneath you can see the fishing game, which is like I was saying before, but this time you've got to pick up a corresponding question and answer with the times tables or any other type of question. And we've also got a bingo game there, so that we can either play the mean version or the kind version. If it's the mean version, what you do is we have a board each and there's the pile of cards in the middle. And if I pick up your card, instead of giving it back to you, I'd hide it back in the middle of the pile of cards. If we're playing the kind version, if I picked up your card, I'd pass it over to you. And the winner is the person who fills up their board first. Oh, and creative writing. These are just a couple of games that we might do, but the one on the left, it's not very clear, I apologise about that, but that's what I call funny pictures. And what we do is it's the game where you fold the piece of paper and the first person draws the head, and then the next person draws the body without seeing the head, and then the third person draws the legs without seeing the body. And then when you open it up, you're left with this crazy character. So then what you'd have to, we can do this several ways. We can either do it so that, like on the right hand side, you have every letter of the alphabet and you have to try and think of a word to describe the character using each letter of the alphabet. Or we may just try and think of as many words as we can to describe him, or we may do it so that there's a different game we have where if you roll a 1 you have to use an adjective to describe him. If you roll a 2 you have to use an adverb. If you roll a 3 you have to use a preposition. So it's different games like that. Then once we've got this accumulation of words, what we might do is write a story about him using the things that we've just created as inspiration. And another game I really enjoy when I'm in people's houses is asking them to build a house of cards. And because if I say to you, please could you write me a story about something that makes you really frustrated, you'll probably sit there for a few minutes trying to think of something that makes you really frustrated. Whereas if you ask a child to build a house of cards, that will very quickly make them very frustrated. And then once they've experienced it, then you can do something again. You would play a couple of games to write down some of the key words of the feelings that they felt. And then again, they can go into writing a story or a descriptive piece or persuasive piece or something about an experience they had when they felt very, oh, sorry, brain's gone. When they felt very frustrated, sorry. Okay, so probably what you're thinking is, this is great, but what do you actually get for your investment of 9,995 plus VAT? That will be going up depending on the size of your territory, but at the minute, that is what it is for now. Okay, so as part of the startup package, you will get, I'm going to pause this just for half a second. Okay, sorry about that. I'm not going to mention everything because it will take too long and you'll get bored of listening to me if you haven't already. But as part of the startup package, you'll get branded stationery, branded t-shirt and jumper, starter packs for both you, your tutors and your students. And you'll also get, I think it's 1,000 flyers, a set of card magnets, and also business cards to give out to people. But in addition to that, there's your own website, your own web page on the company website. And to be honest, this is probably one of the most important things, because although it doesn't sound a lot, over the years, I've spent so much money on websites, and then trying to get that website up in Google and on Bing and everything else takes an awful lot of time and money. And I've also spent an awful lot on training as well to find out about doing Google AdWords and things, or Google Ads as they now are, and things like that. So although a web page in itself doesn't sound very exciting, it's actually probably one of the key things that will be of most importance to you over time. You'll get up to £1,000 of Google Ads and Facebook ads spending on your new business. So in the first 3 months, while you're still getting set up, to give your business a boost, we'll do up to £1,000 worth of ads for you, just to get you noticed in your local area and get people hopefully talking about you and the way that you do things. There's obviously the training manuals which go through all the resources and go through things like the systems we have in place, the training for the tutors, confidentiality and things like that. And there's also this is probably key, there's a week's intensive training, but that's going to be carried out one-to-one, and it will take place here in Aylesbury. We'll pay for your accommodation and your food while you're here. We won't pay for alcoholic drinks, but we'll pay for everything else. And you'd need to pay for your transport down here as well. But the reason we're doing the training one-to-one, which is quite unique, I think, amongst franchises, is because each and every person that comes on board with Clara James probably comes from a different background. And if your background is education, you don't need me to spend as much time, I wouldn't have thought, talking to you about planning lessons and how we learn and things like this. However, if you'd probably want the time spending on marketing your business and things like that. Whereas if your background is business, then you're probably going to be more knowledgeable about marketing and the business aspect of things, but less knowledgeable about the educational side of things. So working with dyslexic children, working with autistic children, planning a lesson and things like that. So by doing the training one-to-one, it means that the week's training can be tailor-made to what it is that you actually need, rather than once again a one-size-fits-all approach, because I believe that our reputation has always been that we give our very best and we adapt everything to meet the needs of the students. So if that's what we're doing with tutoring, then I believe that we ought to give that same level of standard to the franchisees as well. And then moving forward, at the end of the year, we'll not only look at your financial targets, but we'll also look at your personal targets. And so sorry, get my words out. So by doing that, it means that we can have a look to see what the gap is. We can have a look, see where you are now and where you want to be. And then we can talk about systems that we need, how many students you need, etc., in order to make that gap a feasible reality of crossing it. And the other thing is, during the first year, we're also going to pay for your year's membership of the Entrepreneurs Circle, which is based in Birmingham. The link's there if you want to have a look, because I know that my business wouldn't be where it is today without their help. They have some amazing training on there, such as I was watching a Google Ads training earlier. They've got Facebook ads training so that you know how to build your Facebook page and get, this is something we'd obviously go into in more depth in the week. But what you don't want to do with your Facebook page is just boost your ads. What you want to do is actually create official ads, because by doing it that way, you can be more precise about who it is that your marketing goes out to. Because what you might find happen, and I often write about this in the emails, is if you just boost an ad, it's the equivalent of standing in the high street going, hello, I'm here, I'm a tutor. And there could be thousands of people walking past you, but there's probably only one or two of those people which are actually interested in what you're saying. Whereas with Facebook ads, it's more like talking one-to-one to the people who are interested. So you're going to get far better value from your money using Facebook ads rather than just standing there shouting out, which is the equivalent, like I say, of boosting a post. So that membership is worth a fortune, I would say. But the thing is, whatever your goal is, we will do our utmost to help you achieve this. Obviously, it has to be realistic, and we're only here to support you and hold your hand. We can't actually do things for you, but it's obviously in my best interests if you come on board to help you be as successful as you can. And so I promise, hand on heart, that I will always do my best to help you. Okay, what are your potential earnings? We now offer, since lockdown, 2 levels of service, so that before the pandemic, one of our main USPs was the fact that we always travelled to the child, so that the child was always in the comforts of their own home for the lessons. And obviously, when the pandemic happened, it meant that we had to change things, because otherwise we had no business for however many months we were going to be in lockdown for. So we then offered a second tier of learning as well when we started doing Zoom lessons. But as an average, we charge £35 an hour if you travel to the child's home. This might need to be tweaked slightly depending on the part of the country that you're in, but this is a rough guide. This is what I charge. So if I had 10 students a week at £35 an hour, this is before expenses, I would expect around £350 a week, which is the equivalent of £1,400 a month. If I had 20 students a week at £35 an hour, I'm now earning £700 a week or £2,800 a month. Or if I had roughly 30 students, and this is roughly what I have most weeks, at £35 an hour, I'm now looking at earning just over £1,000 a week and roughly £4,200 a month. If I do the lessons in the if I do the lessons via Zoom, we charge £25 an hour. And so if I had 10 students a week on Zoom, that's roughly £250 a week. That works out roughly £1,000 a month. If I was to double that at £25 an hour, I'm now looking at £500 a week, £2,000 a month. And for 30 students a week, you're looking at earning £750 a week, which is the equivalent of £3,000 a month. And obviously, if you're doing the Zoom lessons, you don't have the same expenses because you don't have the travel and you don't have to create as many actual physical resources. Most of what you'll be doing would be just on the screen. So that's why we charge less per lesson than we do if we actually travel to the student. And in addition to this, you'll probably decide that you need tutors to work with you. And so you can earn an additional income from what they, from the hours that they work as well. Monthly expenses, this is worked out from if you're actually traveling to the students. So I drive a Corsa and I spend roughly £45 a week on petrol. I spend roughly £10 a week on stationery, things like ink for the computer, ink for the printer and paper. I laminate a lot of the resources I use because of, I find especially with board games and things, if you don't, children will write on them because in their mind it's just a piece of paper, so they'll add a few extra snakes or they'll add a few ladders or extend some ladders or something, which means that the game you had pristine at the beginning of the lesson is now just a scrap of paper by the end of the lesson. Whereas if you laminate it, it can be used for months and months and months, and it just cuts down on your expenses because you're not having to keep recreating the same thing. You'd also have £62.50 plus VAT a week, which we would use towards marketing your business, and then the franchising fee, which works out at roughly £37.50 a week plus VAT. And the franchising fee would cover all the ongoing support that we would get to in just a moment. But an important notice that there are no fees for the first 3 months. So once you've paid your initial setup fee, there would then be nothing at all to pay for 3 months. When I started tutoring, my goal was to offer the best support that I humanly could because I was afraid of failure. Like I say, I just lost the house, I just lost my marriage when I started tutoring. And I've been scared of failure ever since, but I want to use that fear now and to make sure that I don't fail as a franchisor, sorry, and in the same way, you don't fail as a franchisee. And I will do everything that I can, like I said before, to help you grow your tutoring franchise. Like I said, I can't do things for you, but I can hold your hand, metaphorically speaking, and give you all the guidance that I've picked up from the last 8 years to help you take the correct path and grow a successful business. It says here, are you ready for the next step? But I've actually somehow managed to miss out a big chunk. Bear with me half a second, sorry. Okay, I want to read you something. This is something I wrote a couple of months ago about the support that you would get as a franchisee. When you invest in the franchise, you want to know that that you receive the support that you need. That is, to a large extent, what you will be paying the franchise fees for. Some franchisees may have a history of working in education and feel that it is running the business aspect that they require support in. Others may be confident in running a business, but less confident about the education tutoring aspect of the franchise. Others may require support with both. Whatever your needs are, we are here to help.
Prior to the intensive week of training in Aylesbury, you will receive an introductory manual which will walk you through setting up your bank account, registering with relevant bodies, etc. Your experience with us will then continue with an intensive week of training in Aylesbury. During this week, we would go through everything from marketing, Google Ads, Facebook ads, leaflets, a Facebook page, to name but a few, and who you might want to market to. We will look at the process to go through when a family gets in touch, meeting them and ensuring that you give genuine help and support rather than coming across as a pushy salesman. We will explore planning the lesson, creating resources, carrying out the lesson, receiving feedback and referrals, and using this to grow your business. The support doesn't stop there. Once a fortnight, we will schedule a phone call with your personal mentor. You can use this time to get answers to any questions that you have and talk about goals you have and the support you may need in implementing them. Comprehensive training manuals will contain a lot of answers you may seek. You'll have had a hard copy, but also have access to an online version in a password-protected portal. These cover recruiting tutors, all the systems covered in the initial training week, resources, the training to support you with working with those with special learning difficulties. The bi-monthly printed newsletter will cover a range of things from the resource ideas, books to read to help you grow your business, success that other franchisees have had to inspire you to help you grow your business. Between our fortnightly phone calls, you may come across other questions that you have. Feel free to drop us an email or a text at any time, and we will ring you back as soon as possible or reply by text or email if that is more suitable. We are here to do everything that we can to help you, and this direct access we hope will be one of the biggest assets. Quarterly webinars will provide you with training on specific aspects which people are commonly asking questions about. They will also offer you the opportunity to ask more questions and get support from fellow franchisees. The one-day events held in the summer months will be a fantastic opportunity to network and learn. Each year the content will vary, but key themes will no doubt focus upon getting and keeping students over the summer holidays and back-to-school campaigns. In the winter months, we'll have another networking and training day. This will also combine with our annual awards. The awards will provide the opportunity to congratulate and recognise the growth of your business. This will be a brilliant day and you are guaranteed to leave motivated and inspired for the coming year. Our weekly Franchisees Club Mail will offer a range of useful information and ideas to grow your business. For example, it may be inspiration from other franchisees and what they have done, or it may be a new resource idea. The annual one-to-one meeting is key. This will be your opportunity to meet with us and set your personal targets for both your business and your personal life. We will look at your numbers and the support you will need from us to achieve this and the steps that you will need to take to ensure that it happens. Something we pride ourselves in is the fact that one style doesn't suit all. We provide you with support in working with dyslexic and children on the autism spectrum. We also offer ideas and suggestions on working with children who have other learning difficulties. Though it is always important to remember that these children are individuals and cannot be categorised by their label. Every child you work with will have their individual skills and preferences. The training we give you will help you to recognise these and respond to them. For the last few years, I've been a member of the Entrepreneurs Circle in Birmingham. A large part of the success we have achieved is because of the support we've received from them. In order to help your business grow, we will provide you with 1 year's membership and give you new business the best possible start in life. So there you are. That's our history, how we do things and why, and the support you get. If you want to take it on to the next stage, give me a call. You can either respond to this email or just phone me on my mobile number, which you've probably had access to by now, which is 0771 775 3756. And we can arrange to meet up and have a chat, talk about the contracts and see what happens next. I'll also be sending you out regular emails, which I hope will be of help regardless of whether you decide to join us or not, whether you decide to start your own tutoring company or any other type of company. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video to the end, and I hope it has inspired you. I look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care.